You're writing for a 30-second commercial, a 30-minute film, or an 8-hour miniseries, the jobs are the same. And it's be authentic, be honest, be real, please be entertaining, and hopefully be surprising.
You know, one of the things that I learned from speaking with Rob is that going back to what he said, the notion of being entertaining. We no longer have the ability in advertising to have a captured audience. They can zap us away in a nanosecond. And so we have a lot to learn from the entertainment industry in terms of how you keep people engaged by entertaining them, not in fact by owning them. And I think that's something that's inspiring to me as a creative person, also the notion of being able to create things that are longer than traditional media would allow them to be.
When any one person starts talking about themselves as a brand, it sounds very pretentious, but I do think what real brands do, you know, Coca-Cola, Hermes, GM, whatever they do, I guess GM isn't a brand, but Ford would be, it's really similar to what actors need to do to navigate a very rapidly changing business that's really competitive. And to not think of those things, I think, would be foolish. So yes, I do try to think of some of the same strategies that people in more traditional businesses do. Because it is a business, it's show business.
There was inspiration for people who were creative, who desired to learn to either write better, for example, from what they learned from Rob as it relates to his own writing experience in his book. Obviously, for those of us that write, we write for actors when we're creating commercial messages. There was a much to be learned from there. The thing that I learned the most personally, and which I hope the audience took away, was not only the importance of being authentic, but then in fact by living a rich and fulfilled life, you have more to bring to the screen, on or off, than you do by concentrating on one thing, which would be work alone. I thought that was incredibly valuable for our audience because we live in a workaholic business, as does Rob.
We were told that David first knew Gordon Bowen in New York. He is, or was, when we knew him, extremely wealthy and worked or had worked high up for Coca-Cola. He lived in a huge mansion in the avenues of Salt Lake City. Gordon is a very, very powerful and revered man in the Church of Satan, if he has retained the position he had 14 years ago. At that time, he was the Punisher, and we were told he oversaw torture and murder for Master Mahan and the High Councils. Our parents both awed and reverenced him and often expressed their sexual attraction to him. He would invite us to his mansion in Salt Lake for parties, and our parents were always very excited to attend. Sometimes we took the harp and played in a little balcony over one of the main rooms for his guests. In the 1990s we went up for years to Gordon's SLC home for parties and get-togethers with a mostly wealthy, or very talented or connected, and more powerful CS crowd. David and Roselle would really work the people there, trying to get more clients for he and Redacted, and use the opportunity to advertise our pornographic films. We were even introduced once to the whole group by Gordon as the Three Graces, with a flowery introduction about our pornographic film and performance work. David was elated that night. Sometimes Gordon held exclusive classes or lectures for CS parents, and Redacted wanted David's training to be as well respected and sought after. In the fall of 1999, our parents had been very concerned about what was happening with the divorce trial and other issues. They wrote love letters back and forth to each other for a time. Both David and Roselle were in trouble with the High Council Richard was on. One night Roselle told me that all of us, my sisters and I included, were in danger of being punished. She said we had to go to visit Gordon Bowen with offerings, which were us, and maybe he would be pacified and not go after us. I knew Gordon and his reputation and was terrified we were going to see him. Roselle said if I did not cooperate, she would arrange to have me live with him for a few months, telling others that I was out of the country again. We drove up with Janae Jones, Janae's daughters, and several other girls. We drove in separate cars to Gordon Bowen's house. No one was home, but Roselle opened the house somehow. The girls had planned on swimming, but the pool was dirty and full of leaves. Instead, we went into the house and Roselle started getting the food out of his fridge for the meal she had planned to make him. Janae and Roselle and I helped prepare the meal and clean up. One was sent upstairs to a bedroom Roselle assigned me with the order not to come out and to do anything and everything Gordon told me to do. I am not sure who left or stayed, but I did hear someone crying in the night. I sat on the bed and stared at the door. When Gordon finally came in, it seemed very late. He became very violent and enraged as he raped me vaginally. Then he told me not to move and he got a small leather bundle he had brought in the room with him. It had a leather tie and he unrolled it to reveal a set of small, strangely shaped knives. He described each one to me, how sharp they were. He showed me by barely touching it to one of my fingers and how easily it cut and started bleeding right away. He described how he used them on disobedient young women to skin and fillet them, among other things. He told me I was never to tell anyone I had been at his house that night. After he left the room, I held my finger until it stopped bleeding. I cried as I heard my sisters crying and a lot of other sounds, voices, laughing, animal-like sounds, and screaming throughout the night.